next, we will we'll switch focus here. Well, we'll still be the focus will be on the same topic, but as I mentioned earlier, Greg was coming from a national team perspective, which is very different from a club team perspective like us. So we'll talk about using analytics in our decision-making workflow. And I want to introduce you to Gonzalo Pineda, assistant coach for Seattle Sounders, former Mexican international. I knew Gonzalo when he was playing at Pumas back in 2004-05, when he won a couple of titles there. That's the first time I watched him play. Obviously, he didn't know me then, and I didn't think that I will ever get to work with him at that time. So it's a small world. I am the director of analytics for the Seattle Sounders. Today, we'll walk you through some of our processes and how we use analytics and information, and how we have the dialogue, and some of the points that Greg touched upon early on about communication, integration, collaboration. I think those terms ring true for us as well. Those are some of the notes I took when he was talking, because those resonate with us really well. Okay, just quick rundown of the agenda. We're going to talk today. We'll talk about coach versus analyst. I don't know if I should put versus there. It's more like coach and analyst. I always try to think that it's a collaboration. How do we use analytics? We'll give some examples. We'll have some debate, some discussion about how we use it, and then among the examples are, one of them is how we evaluate our own performance, how we evaluate a rival or an opponent, and how we scout players, or how we use analytics while we scout players. And then we also look at limitations and opportunities for the future. The first slide, the coach versus analyst, like normally it is framed as subjective versus objective debate, right? It's always the coach is subjective or the analyst is objective. Like many things in life, it's not as white and black. I think there are shades of different shades to it. Now, the next question that comes up is data always objective? But what is data? Data is just a collection of facts about something that happened. Okay, if you're talking about football match, I passed to Gonzalo. Gonzalo passed to Brian, and then Brian passed to Preki, who scored a goal. Now that's what happened on the field. Now it also depends on how you define the data. One of them is the data definitions that anyone uses. For example, within your club, you may have a certain definition for what is a forward pass. Opta, the company that codes data, may code that a little differently. What is a forward pass? So that's also another aspect there that adds some element of, it's objective, but it's again, there is like a definition and a limitation of the definitions there. And the interpretation of data always adds some subjectivity to the mix, whether it's a coach or an analyst, there's always a level of a certain amount of subjectivity that gets added when you interpret data. And the other part here is that I always like to think this is one of the things that that resonates really well within our club, and Gonzalo can talk about this as well, is that a coach and analyst see the game differently, and I think this is by design, because it enables each of us to cover the blind spots that we might have in our way of thinking, in our way of looking at matches. So the relationship is very complementary and not a rivalry. It's a complementary relationship. Gonzo?
Yeah, well, a little bit about what Ravi said about the conflict that maybe not just in the old days, but maybe now in another environments, in other countries that are not educated to read the game through stats, through numbers. I think there's some truth on saying that people think that data is always subjective and the coach's opinion or coach's point of view is subjective. And I think, as Ravi said, maybe the interpretation of the data can be subjective at times. And I'm going to give you examples because, I mean, it's all about the game and it's all about football. And I love center mids. So I'm going to give you an example with center mid. So there's data when you are analyzing a game or a player where you see stats such as number of passes, right? Or percentage of passes completed. And when a player is high, people tend to say that that player, that center mid, is a good connector. But is that true? Is that something objective? So the interpretation of these two data, and probably is very, very generic data, it can be wrong. So what someone like me that was wired or educated as watching the game and then analyzing the game, analyzing the player, what do I want from data? What is, for me, meaningful data? So for example, it's not just about the passes connected. It's about how many passes of those broke the line, which is maybe something that me as a coach, me with my game model, I want to keep on a center mid. Or how many times he received the ball in behind the forwards to be the connector and then progress the ball forward. Is he good under pressure? Is he good when playing against Boca Juniors in Copa Libertadores or against Real Madrid in Champions League? Is that something that he does very well on those environments? Is he good at home but not very good playing away? So those are more mental things that me as a coach, I want that information. And well, as Ravi said, I think the key part of this connection and not just the confrontation of data versus coach's point of view, I think is understanding that one fills the gap from the other. I think there's data that complement the point of view of the coach, but also is the challenge from the coach to the analyst to give more meaningful data. And I think that's where we're going to explain now. Ravi is going to explain how we use data and why.
Yeah, so, well, as we kind of run down, there is, physical data is used in analytics. Greg had some good examples of how they use information to make sure that the players, the risk of injury is kept low and players can perform at optimum. So physical data, where we manage the load, and it's the realm of the fitness coaches and the high performance director. For today's conversation, we will not go very deep into that, but just mention that that's one part of this. And then we evaluate performance. How do we evaluate our own performance and how we analyze the opponents? And then also the recruitment part, how we scout new players that we want to bring into our team. So I'll start with an objective that might sound very cliche, but this is what we want to do as a team, as Sounders. I'm sure a lot of teams, this create more high value goal scoring chances than the opponent consistently. Now I highlighted chances because therein that itself, that's a beautiful term, chance or opportunity, because it has probability built into it. So what you're saying is that you're trying to create more chances that have high probability of scoring. But you also know that some days or sometimes you may create 10 great chances, but may not score a single goal. Those games happen too. But I think the beauty of this is that we all try to create as many of these as possible, more than the opponent, and consistently, because that's how we will win a lot more games than everybody else in the league. So how do we evaluate performance? And we have the high level objective, which we know is that we want to create high value scoring chances. So here, for example, game model is what coaches create based on the philosophy of the coaches. For example, Gonzalo might want something different, or our Sounder staff wants to do something a certain way. Now, Brian, Gonzo, and then and the philosophy of and the available group of players and their qualities. Like you can't, I guess you can't make a cake with spaghetti or something. So you need to have the right players, or you need to adapt a little bit to the players you have to produce a system or to produce a model that will achieve the objective that we set out to achieve. And then also it depends on the culture and the objectives of the club as well. And the metrics and the KPI is a key performance indicator, needs to take into the game model into consideration to measure the how part of how are you doing this and how is what we want to repeat. In addition to the what, I think the what is more generate. Like what are we trying to do is more generate. How are we trying to do is probably a little bit more specific. So there is that difference and how you, and so there needs to be some metrics that measure the how part of it. The example I give is there is no disrespect to anyone here. It's just two different styles of play. The KPIs to measure how Manchester City is creating high value chances probably won't be very useful to evaluate how Bournemouth is trying to do it because they have different players, different style. And so that's how those are the different things that go into the evaluation of performance. Gonzo, you have anything to add here?
No, you are quite well.
Okay. So I'll give an example of analyzing a match. I hope Devin is not watching this, or Toronto fans. You can. It is just about what happened in the match, so shouldn't be a big deal. Don't tune out. Yeah. So we'll just talk about this match, not too much in detail, but a few snippets. Like some of the metrics we look today that are based on the input I get from our coaches and what we can do with the data we have. We play a lot of it. We look at possession, yes, and I'll go detail into it a little later. Zones of possession, where we more than possession, where do we possess the ball is very important in our style of play. How are we building out of the back is a very big emphasis for us. What are the different sequences of passes that we are building and how they are ending and where they are ending. And obviously the chances created and the quality of chances, which is also expected goals or the different varieties of it. And I look at this and I go, so this is like the expected goals, the chances chart from the final. Left is Seattle, right is Toronto. Toronto dominated possession in the game, 66-34. That's 2-1. The number of chances were almost dead even, like both teams. However, Seattle created more high-value chances. I mean, we had like 3 big chances that, even though we didn't score from those all 3 big chances, but we had 3 really good chances during the game. So the stars in the graph represent the shots that were goals. The circles were saved or were missed or hit the post or something. So and the size of the circle, the star determines how high probability chance it was. And then overall, the aggregate expected goal value was about 1.8 to 1.1. But if you remember the match and you watch the first half, there were moments where it felt like, obviously because Toronto dominated the possession, it was a game where it didn't seem like we were the ones that created the better chances. And also the first goal, which had double deflection, which is also how the game started. And you can see the chance of scoring from that shot is not that high. But that's part of the beauty of any sport, is that there's always going to be events which low probability events happening. Next, we talk about how we analyze an opponent. And I think this is where we work a lot with the video analyst and in conjunction with the data, and we analyze the opponents. So this is one brief note here is that the timeline. So as analysts, we always try to stay ahead at least 1 game or 1 week, if preferably more if possible. But we always try to stay ahead, meaning that if we are going to play Columbus this weekend, the analysts are ready with information for the game after Columbus, that the next week's game. And that's pretty common across all the teams in the world. We look at things like common patterns, that what are the type of patterns, pass patterns or movement patterns that the teams do, how do they create and concede chances, specific attention to some individuals, if there is some really specific individuals that that make the game for a team. We look at that, and also some of the physical characteristics of the opponent. Gonzo.
Yeah, well, I think it's very important that we all work together. Like for us, it's very important that we come back always to the game model. And I think our game model is always designed by obviously the vision or the style of the head coach. In this case, is Brian Schmetzer. And the characteristics of the players we have at the moment, maybe some signings that we might do in the future, the history of the club, the philosophy of the club, the culture of the club, the goals of the club, the moment of the season. So all of these things take place on how we create the game model. It's very important for us that we collaborate together with our analytics department, because if we don't explain to them how's our attacking phase, how's our defensive phase, what are the principles, the macro principles, the soft principles on every phase of our game model, it's very hard for them to analyze the game as we want. Obviously, for example, the stat that Ravi showed on Toronto's final, for us is very important, the possession. For us, we always talk about possession with production, because we want to produce better chances and more chances than the opponent. We always want that, and we want that through good possessions in the attacking, good possession sequences in the attacking half. So if we don't explain that to our analytics department, our video department, it's impossible they can create the stats that we need. The same happened with when we analyze the opponent or when we scout the opponent. If we don't tell them what are we looking for from the opponent, are we looking at the positions of the key players, where they move more often, what are the most common passes for them to create chances, where do they create chances more often, the physical characteristics of the opponent, how they play up from the back, how is the main structure, what is the main position of every player in different parts of the field. So all this information has to be provided and always adjusted and always discussed between probably the assistant coaches, because we don't want Brian to distract with these things, but we know what Brian thinks. And we pass this message to Ravi and to our video analyst, Jorge, now, and in the past it was Tom Childs. But it's very important for us to have this collaboration in order to make more efficient this process.
Yeah. Data and video complementing each other to give a more rounded picture. Again, I think I stress upon this complementing part, because I think all of us look at things differently, and also each information source, like a data or a video or just experience of coaches, I think all of them come with some things and some blind spots, and so we have to gel them all together to have a most complete picture. Sometimes the data and video don't match, and those are really good moments that we have a lot of good discussions, and they invariably lead to some first long debates and discussions, and after that we probably adjust some of our parameters, or like from a data perspective, maybe see what I'm missing in some cases, or if the video side is missing something, maybe we probably look for something more in the video specifically. So this is just an example of, I think Gonzo can talk more about this as well, but I'll just give you the brief introduction of this, is that, well, these are two different teams. And what you're seeing is that if you read from, let's look at Team A. Left to right, the first heat map, the first map is showing where the pass, these are like the information that I pass on that shows how teams create opportunities, scoring opportunities. And left to right is the progression of the ball, how before they actually take an attempt at goal, how did the ball progress, and where do the ball progresses from. So these are three different. So you can look at Team A. Team A looks a little bit more, is different than Team B. Team B looks a lot more playing right in the zone 14, or right on top of the box a lot, like they have a lot of possession. And team A, whereas team A is a lot more moving to the right a little bit, and starting the attacks are starting deeper. They're probably a little bit more direct, transitionary type. And so this is the information that I pass on to the coaches. And then at that point, Gonzo takes over.
Well, yes, I mean, this is where we confronted the information. So when we scout the opponent, obviously with the help of the video analyst, but also as assistant coaches, Jimmy, Preki, Tom, and I, we come up with how we think the opponent plays and how we can beat them, but also how we can defend from their best qualities they have. So on the left, we can watch a team that is much more transitional, where the third assist, there are passes very, very deep, and especially on the left side. And the second pass before the assist, it comes from almost top of the circle. Most of that, those passes are in transition. We can see kind of or guessing what is the progression there. Actually, Ravi did a good job on showing you this with heat maps, but actually the info that we get from Ravi is specifically which players passes the ball into each zone, and we see a lot of dots there, and it's very, very easy for us to determine which are the players that intervene more often in their goal scoring chances. On the right side, on the screen, we can see much more a team that loves to penetrate through the middle, that likes to penetrate in the zone 14, on the half spaces. And that's where we merge the information. So we look at the one team and we said, okay, this team is plays based on the video analysis. This team plays more direct, is more transition. Does this match what you have, Ravi? And then Ravi comes with these stats and he say yes or no. And that's where the information is better, because now we have support, or when we don't agree, we look at why not. Is that because we only watch the last 3-4 games and we need to watch more games, or there are players that won't play against us, and Ravi based his stats on those games where a different player changed the style of the team. And that's where we have debates about how we interpreted these graphics, but it's actually some of the most useful graphics we have to understand how a team how any team attacks in the league.
So next we'll move to scouting players. So the other aspect of the, where we use analytics. I think this is again like this one where we'll always look. There's always the physical element to every to this as well. And then from a soccer side or football side. Well, one of the things that we evaluate is like, okay, what is this player's role going to be in our team? If you're looking for a number 6, okay, what do we want our number 6 to do? Or if you're looking for a number 10, what do we want our number 10 to do? And so it need not be every little thing that he does. It's about the top things that we want him to do. And every player is different. So even if you scout for a certain position and you have 5 players in your final list, all 5 are subtly different. They won't be identical. So we evaluate based on the key duties that they need to perform. So some of the contextual analytics or contextual pieces that gets added makes the analysis a little bit more complicated, sometimes challenging because of lack of enough data. Is which league is the player coming from? What type of team he plays for? How does the league compare to MLS? What is the style of play of the team? Does that have an effect on his stats? One easy example I can give you is that, so if we get an attacking player that you look at his stats and like, oh, he's creating 3 chances per game or 3 chances per 90 minutes. But the problem is that he's also the designated free kick and corner taker for the team. So that actually inflates his numbers a little bit, because those numbers won't translate to every team, because every team has a designated free kick or corner kick or even penalty takers. And this player may or may not become the designated player in the new team or when he comes to us. So we just have to separate those things out. This is a very simple example. And we always complement with data, the analysis, the video analysis, and the scouts are watching live games. Like like Chris Henderson, Sean. I mean, those guys are watching games, and they have their own evaluation of the players, and also they can observe some certain aspects when they go to watch trainings that we don't have data on. So they can watch some things that are not captured by data from the matches. So I want Gonzalo is an expert in Mexican League, and I want to give him the opportunity to talk about Raul.
Well, yes, when we just signed Raul, I mean, most of you probably know Raul Ruidiaz, a huge signing for us in Seattle Sounders, a big player for us. And when we were looking at Raul in Morelia, or the club was looking at that, obviously Chris and Sean and Brian and Ravi were analyzing everything on Raul. People ask me about Morelia, about what type of team, about how do I think Raul could do with us. And when you look at Morelia in Mexico, it's a middle table team. So they are always between 6th place and 10 to 12. So sometimes they make playoffs, sometimes they don't. And their style of play, it was quite different than what we do. So they were a little bit more direct and probably not many connections with Raul. But what we watch at the quality of Raul, and his goals per 90 minutes was very, very good. It was 0.5 goals per game, per 90 minutes. I mean, that's almost 2 goals, 1 goal every 2 games. Is very, very high for a forward. But even there, we thought that within our environment, in our league, with our team, with the style we like to play, with someone like Nico Lodeiro on beneath Raul, we could have more chances for Raul, and therefore he could be even more effective. And actually right now, after almost, a couple seasons with Raul, his average race, his level is 0.65 goals per 90 minutes. That means almost 2 goals every 3 games. And that's where, for me, is great, is backing up what you know and understanding the context of the league, of the team, of the style of the team, and you can almost predict how he's going to do with you. And the stats back up that.
Another example that I'll briefly touch upon, because we're sort of running up on time. There's really some interesting stuff up ahead in this presentation. Is that, so if you're looking for a 6 to be your foundational player to start playing out of the back, and if that's your principle, and that's not the only thing. This is just one aspect of the scouting, or one aspect of what we're looking at in a player that we might want to sign. So again, as I mentioned earlier, what type of team does he play for? Do they play? How often do they play long versus short from goal kicks? Or like what is their philosophy that way? And the other things we look at is the player a first or second option playing out of the back from the goal kick? Is he always trying to receive the ball or showing to receive the ball? So these are things that we can measure, and then there's some information that I can pass on to the scouts and to the coaching staff to compare different players. So this is just an example of a couple of players that we looked at a while ago. Don't worry about the bands in between, but it's mostly the graph on the left is whether he was the first option from goal kick. The meaning goalkeeper plays the ball to the player. The graph on the right is whether he's the third. He's in this third guy in the link where the ball goes to a center back or full back first, and then comes to the number 6, and also it tells where on the pitch the player receives the ball. So obviously, when you're scouting for a 6 with certain qualities that you're looking for, based on this criteria, these 2 are 2 different players. Like you might want to, one is not exactly the same as the other, so you have to. So this type of information helps separate some of the, helps us get to a better decision. Okay, so we'll move into the limitations and opportunities part, where we'll switch. Gonzalo will share the screen shortly. So one of the things that we can't measure today is the mental side of the game. I think we've heard this a lot of times. And I think there is a mental side to the game for sure. And then the other part is like, even within a football action, like a pass or a dribble or a shot, there is like different layers to it that we have some examples that we want to show to see where are the future opportunities lie in football for analytics.
Yeah, well, we think that football action involves three things, right? So for a football action to happen, the perception is key. What is perception is the understanding of my surrounding, is what is close to me, whether it's the opponent, whether it's a teammate, how much time and space I have if I get the ball. That's kind of, or if I can intervene in a defensive action. So the perception is key for a player to actually perform. Then after having that information, after knowing what is going on around me, then is the decision making, and it's out of 3-4 options probably what is the best option for us to progress the ball or for us to take the ball out of the opponent. And then obviously is the execution, right? Is the technical ability of the player. Some people think this is the quality of the player. And this is obviously against the automatism. Nowadays, it's very common. For example, Bielsa is is very hard on this, on the automatism of the players. And automatism is a unconscious behavior, something that you do without thinking, without understanding what is going on. You just do because you are used to do that, and you do that in an automatic way. But we think that most of the teams in football, you go to the process of perception, decision making, and execution. So now I'm going to show some examples of these. I want to make it a little bit interactive here. I want you guys to participate on this, and if you can, let me
use the chat function to answer the questions.
Here, can you see this? Can you see this, Ravi?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So what I would like to do now is if I'm going to play this clip. It's a clip of Bundesliga game, and I want you guys to tell me, what do you see? What do you see out of this clip? So here we go. I'm going to stop talking and then just watch, and please let us know, what do you think?
Yeah, just type into the chat window, what do you think of what's happening on the field? Anything like about describing the play.
Yeah. So you know, here I can see all of the quotes from you. Is high press, pressing trap, Vidal always supporting between lines, pressing triggers, pressing the pivot player, Vidal doesn't turn, press triggers, number 6 playing one touch. I mean, we all can see very, very different things, right? Out of the same clip. There are always two options for pass. There are building out from the back, middle block defensively from Bayern Leverkusen. That changes to a high press. So many comments, and the common trend is we all see different things. As someone saw something very defensive, someone saw something good of Bayern Munich about the build-up, about playing simple probably. So I'm gonna invite you inside my brain, inside my coach brain, and I'm not saying that we all have to agree with this, but this is what I see out of this clip. So out of the same clip, I see the situation, right? So I see a situation where Bayern Munich is building up from the back. So Bayern Munich is playing with a back 4 and one holding center mid. This is the information we have right now with this part of the clip. And then Bayer Leverkusen has a line of confrontation. The first line of confrontations are the two strikers. And the objective for me now for Bayern Munich is to break the first line of pressure. How we can put a player, in this case the center mid, in behind the first line of confrontation with time and space to progress the ball forward. That's the game. in this phase for me, right? So then apparently they succeed here. But what is missing is that Vidal doesn't have time and space to progress the ball because the pressure is coming from the center mid. So he has to play back. And we start again in the same situation. Now we have more information. Now we know that Bayer Leverkusen has four players in the midfield, and that's the second line of confrontation. We also can see Müller on the right side and the number 6, Thiago, on the left side. Those are the attacking midfielders. Normally, Pep Guardiola put those on the half spaces, more central, but in this game, he opened them up a little bit more. But again, it's the same situation. It's how Bayern Munich is going to break the first line of pressure. Again, they try again with Vidal, but because of the pressure, they come back and they restart the sequence. Now they think in something different. Break the line, but outside of the shape, not through the shape. So now the left back has the ball, and this is where probably that's the solution for Pep Guardiola. This is where maybe Thiago Alcantara here was the solution, but because of the pressure from the center mid here, none of the center mids are pressing Vidal. And that's the key of this clip, in my opinion. This is where the perception of the player should be there, where Vidal should be looking around in half a second and understanding what is going around, what is going on. Am I being pressed from the center mid? Am I being pressed from the blind side, from the number 9? Can I progress the ball forward? Can I break the line? And that's the decision making. Now, Vidal must take the decision. And what is the decision for Vidal? Playing back. Probably he could have been playing forward, and that's the frustration of Pep Guardiola, which is very funny to me, how he complains about Vidal not turning in that situation. So this tells you a little bit about my ideas as a coach, what I ask Ravi and the video analysts to look at when we watch a game. Either we analyze our team or we scout an opponent. These are the type of behavior that I want to see. I'm going to show you another example, and this is the last example. And this is about Napoli versus Manchester City in Champions League. And we're going to take Napoli as an example. So three players for Napoli. We can see right now who's highlighted here is Jorginho, the center mid for Napoli. And he's looking over the shoulder on the left side. Again, now he's looking right side. Again, on the left side. And as the ball comes, he's looking again forward to see what is going on because of the complexity of the game and the game changes in half a second, you must look always over your shoulder to know exactly what is going on in every situation, in every moment of the game. As he's turning forward, now he made the decision to turn, to play forward, he can progress the ball. He started to realize what are the options. But at the same time, Hamsik now, playing as attacking midfielder, now he's looking over the shoulder, trying to understand if he's going to be pressed by the center back, by the right back, who's in behind, does he has time and space, can he back up? Again, as the ball is halfway to him, he's looking again over the shoulder, trying to see if the situation changed again. And that's the perception that we are talking about. Now, based on this, he knows that he can turn. He turns, and as he's turning now, Mertens, who's another option for Hamsik, he's looking over the shoulder on the left side, trying to understand again, what is the information? Where is my teammate? Where is the right-sided winger, Callejon? Where is the left back and the center back on the left for Manchester City? Trying to understand the surrounding. Again, he's looking over the shoulder, he's demanding the ball, and for me, he's demanding the ball into the front foot, which is a very little detail, but very important when you progress the ball to play into the right foot. But the decision-making from Hamsik is very good. Play forward. Now, the perception as you are dribbling with the ball is playing behind Callejon because he understands, he sees the movement, he perceives what is going on around. And that ends up with a great decision-making, great execution, and a very, very clear chance on goal. If you want to come back to the other screen, Ravi, please. And for me, as you are doing that, Ravi, in my opinion, I think this is where, yeah. this is where data normally, I'm not saying that always, but normally always analyze the execution, not the perception, not the decision making. And at times you as a coach, when you want to analyze an opponent or a team or a player, you want to see those processes. Does he understand what is going on around? Does he understand what was the best option out of the multiple passing lanes he had in the game? Those are the things that for me are the future for data. And probably Ravi is going to talk more about how is that going on. You are mute, Ravi.
Sorry. Those were a couple of great clips. And when I was watching yesterday, we had a little conversation about what my perception was. And then, like talking to Gonzo, it's something similar, like as people have replied with a lot of answers and, different ways of how they see it. So a lot of things there, but I want to summarize as we're running up on the time here. So the perception and the decision-making parts, I think some of that, especially decision-making, is something that can be solved with high-quality tracking data. I think those are the metrics that are just coming, or they're there. Some of them are there, but not widely available, which is something that we're going to get there. But I think the perception part, some of it needs an even higher level of tracking data, maybe that measures body position, and you have not just one point as a player, but has multiple points of shoulders and head. And if you track all of that, then I think you can start digging into perception part. But it was a great kind of explanation, or great look at what are the things that we can do in the future, or what are the opportunities we have. We'll end this on a little bit of a, we'll try to end this on a happy note, happy for some. So summary, the analytics-based approach is probabilistic, meaning, we try to increase the probability of winning. We try to increase the probability of, scoring a goal, or how to score better, create better opportunities. However, there will always be exceptions. You can use the chat window now to answer this question. What do you think this is? Like, what do you think this is? I might have given away with my clumsiness there, but what do you think this is? I'll give like 30 seconds. I see Coutinho shot map. That was interesting. Assist map, throw-ins. All right. I think I had enough. So it is a shot map, obviously. Generally low percentage shots there. I think this is the kind of the discussion Gonzalo and I and other coaches, Jimmy, and we all have, and Tom, when he was here, we used to have really passionate discussions about whether we should let players take these shots. Then what happens is, so now I have the star there. It's the goal. And what that was Victor Rodriguez's shot map of a particular shot he really fancied. The one almost all inverted wingers coming from the left side with the right foot tried to curl the ball around the keeper. He's taken 46 shots over 3 seasons, similar nature. And all of them are pretty low probability shots, but scored 1 goal. And that was the game winner in the MLS Cup. And so I think this is kind of, we wanted to end it here. Gonzo, you can add some to the.
Well, yes, it's just the discussion always, like it was through those 3 seasons that we analyzed Victor. It was probably that we as coaches, we had probably more information because we used to watch Victor training as well. And we watched that he had the quality to score goals from there. So for us to tell us from the data analysis on Victor Rodriguez games, saying, okay, you should tell Victor that he shouldn't shoot from there and probably look for upgrade the chance, maybe look more into a deeper zone, maybe a wall pass to create a better chance just to raise. And I understand the logic there, but probably what we see as coaches is that in any given day, Victor can score a goal because of he has the quality. Now, what we took from that info that Ravi provided to us was that we needed to train probably a little bit more with Victor, because he was taking many shots on the games. But probably we need to emphasize that as an individual exercise. And actually that's what Preki did with Victor. And he does that with everybody, but specifically with Victor on those type of situations, coming from left to right and taking that shot. And that's something that worked in the final. But that was kind of the joke of after the final of Jimmy and I poking Ravi on should we shoot from there or not. And obviously a big smile was the answer for us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I think it's we'll answer the questions on the chat. I think we kind of ran up against time because of the clips at the end. Thanks a lot, and this was our presentation. And we'll take a minute and switch to Tom Warwell's presentation in a few minutes.